Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. The meeting is scheduled to end at 5:30 p.m. today. If necessary, I will extend it by 15 minutes. If I may remind members, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the items of discussion today, please act in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. Disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. If I may also draw members' attention to Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure on voting in case of direct pecuniary interest. Item 1 on the agenda, FCR 2025-2616. This item seeks approval of the recommendation of the Establishment Subcommittee, ESC, made at its meeting on the 14th of May 2025, EC 2025-26-2. Retention of 2 time-limited supernumerary posts of 1 administrative officer staff grade BD3 and 1 administrative officer staff grade CD2 in the Financial Services branch of the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau from the 1st of January 2026 or upon approval by the Finance Committee, whichever is later, up to 31st of December 2028, to promote various relevant policies with pivotal functions including company registration regime, accounting profession, and fintech, and to take forward a number of initiatives in key policy areas. In accordance with Paragraph 3A of the Finance Committee procedure, as the ESC does not recommend the FC further discussing this paper and there is no joint request made by no less than 3 members asking the FC to further discuss it, so the FC will not be discussing this proposal any further. And I'll put FCR 2025-2616 to a vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Thank you. Any objection? Dr. Dixie-Yun? I think that the members who voted are in favor of the proposal. I declare the proposal passed. Item 2, FCR 2025-2617. This item seeks approval of the recommendation of the Establishment Subcommittee made at its meeting held on the 14th of May 2025 on EC 2025-26-3. It's about deletion of 2 permanent posts of Assistant Commissioner of Banking D2 in the Hong Kong Monetary Authority with immediate effect upon approval by the Finance Committee. Same with the last agenda. In accordance with the recommendations made by the ESC, the FC will not be further discussing the paper. So I will now put FCR 2025-2617 to a vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Anyone against the proposal? If not, I think that the members who voted are in favor of the proposal. I declare the proposal passed. Item 3, FCR 2025-2618. This item seeks approval of the recommendation of the ESC made at its meeting on the 14th of May 2025 on paper EC 2025-26-4. It's about retention of 1 time-limited supernumerary post of Chief Labor Officer D1 in the Labor Department with effect from the 8th of July 2025 or with immediate effect upon approval of the Finance Committee, whichever is the later, for a period of 3 years to lead the Registry of Trade Unions and the Workplace Consultation Promotion Division to strengthen the regulation of trade unions to safeguard national security as well as promote workplace consultation to foster harmonious labor relations. Same with the previous items. In accordance with the recommendations made by the ESC, the FC will not be further discussing this paper. So now I put FCR 2025-2618 to a vote. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Thank you. Anyone against it? Dr. Dixie-Yun. I think that the members who voted are mostly in favor of the proposal. I declare the proposal passed. Last item today, FCR 2025-2619. This item invites members to approve the creation of a new commitment of $19.126 million under Head 708 Capital Subventions and Major Systems and Equipment for the replacement of radio communication system for the Customs Drug Investigation Bureau, CDIB, of the Customs and Excise Department. The Security Bureau consulted this panel on security on the 14th of April 2025. To answer members' questions, we have Mr. Michael Check, Undersecretary for Security, Ms. Joey Lee, Principal Assistant Secretary for Security, Mr. Wang Ho Yan, Assistant Commissioner of Customs and Excise, and Mr. Lau Yuk Lung, Heads of CDIB, here. Now I ask Ms. Carmen Khan, Chairman of the panel on security, to report to members about the discussion. The panel on security discussed the relevant proposal on the 14th of April 2025. Members noted that the CDIB under the CNED has been using the existing radio communication system to conduct law enforcement actions. The system has been in operation since 2014, exceeding its normal service life. The existing models of radio terminals have already been out of production. There is shortage of spare parts available in the market. That's why members support the replacement of the system with a new one with much more enhanced functionality to enhance the overall efficiency of the enforcement work of the CDIB. Regarding technical requirements of the new system, members are concerned about the service life of the new system, encryption standard, price and number of new radio terminals to be procured, and the compatibility with of the new systems with other systems in the CNED. Members are also concerned whether the telecommunications model and the coverage can meet the operational needs of the CDIB. Members urged the CNED to give due regard to national security and geopolitical risks to ensure the stability of supply, repair, and maintenance. The administration has already responded to the concerns and views raised by the members. The panel supported the submissions of the financial proposal to the Finance Committee for consideration. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Khan. There are 17 members who have pressed the button. Read out the names. Mr. Lam Chen Sing, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Chao Man Kong, Mr. Ling Chen Kang. Fifth, Mr. Benson Look, and then Ms. Yong Ha Yan, Mr. Kenneth Lam, Ms. Lilian Kwok, Dr. Johnny Ng, Mr. Tony Chen, Mr. Su Chan Wing, Mr. Kenneth Falk, Mr. Chan Xiu Hong, Mr. Tan Yuhen, Dr. Wendy Hong, Mr. Tang Fei, and Mr. Dennis Leung. Mr. Lam Chen Sing.
I'll assign a 5-minute time limit. Thank you, Chair. I actually asked about this system with the labor union members of the police force. Or the Customs and Excise Department. They welcome this system because the system will provide better coverage and more stable connections. I do have some questions, however. The Security Bureau said the police force have this system and a hybrid model is used. That is the dual transmission model is used. Not only will they make use of established radio network of the disciplinary forces, but also some telco providers' networks. So I want to ask, when you sign agreements with the telco providers, will you have priority set in the clauses of agreements? When you get to urban areas, when you handle the drug cases, say close to nightclubs, when there is higher traffic, will the network be less stable? If you are given priority in connection, will that facilitate stable connections by your officers? It is also said in the paper that the technology is new and you are making use of some very good algorithms for encryption to enhance security. I want to ask, for your old system or systems, have you had any incidents or leaks, or have you had any penetration attacks? With the new system, will it resolve the issues you had before? On expenditure with the dual mode transmission. You will still make use of the existing radio network of the CNED. So will there be a service life of the established network? Is it nearing its end if there is a service life? Will you need to apply for funding again to fix the network, or should you apply for funding together on this occasion if that is the case? Thank you. Undersecretary. Let me first say this. With the Customs and Excise Department replacing the system, they will try to retain as much as possible the infrastructure, and that would include the radio network. It's just mainly with the radio terminals, the dual mode transmission will be applied. So they can use not just the established radio network built by the Customs and Excise Department, but also telco service providers network. As for whether we should discuss terms for priority with the telco providers, it really depends on the cost effectiveness. We do have pretty good coverage with our established network already. But having the option of using telco service providers networks, we will cover some blind spots to have better coverage. Now, on the security system, we used to use a DES system. It is a digital system. And they had 64 nodes for each component. And for the AES, we will have 256 nodes. So there are many ways of combining the different data in encryption and decryption. We never had any security incidents with the old system, though. As for how long can the established network serve us, the problem actually lies with the radio terminals. We have been using it beyond its service life. We still have some spare parts, but they can only be used for another 2 years. The established network is working well, and our personnel have been repairing and maintaining the network, and the network has been working smoothly, and it can be used for another 5 years or more. So we want to make sure we are making good use of public money. So we will just repair and maintain the established network for now. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam, I only have one question. I note in the expenditure you have costs for hardware and software. And according to the paper, you will be updating the system. You will have better coverage. I do not have a problem with that. For hardware, I want to find out more, because you would have specialized radio terminals. So the old terminals have to be replaced. Are the old ones also specialized and custom made? If not, can we buy something similar in function that we can buy on the market? What you talked about for custom-made radio terminals, you are saying that it can be dust-proof, waterproof, and so on. And I think you can buy something that is dust-proof and waterproof on Atlu Street as well. So I just want to ask if you have looked into different options, compared the prices. So now the cost is still quite high. Is it possible for you to compress the costs? Thank you. Undersecretary, we are referring to specifically the radio terminals. We need to have the radio terminals custom made, mainly because it has to accommodate the encryption software, and it also has to match the needs of the CTIB. For example, there has to be an emergency button so that officers can press them when necessary. And then they would get priority in communication. I can't disclose too many details for the safety of officers, but these options are not, or functions are not available on the market, so these radio terminals have to be specialized. What about price comparison? Well, in general, for single transmission mode, it is only $1,500, and for dual transmission mode terminals, they cost $15,000 to $30,000, and we'll try to compress costs as much as possible. Thank you. Professor Chairman Kong. I think it is justifiable to replace the system, but I want to ask, would the radio terminals being specialized be able to be resistant against interceptions? I also want to say this. At the panel on security meeting, we talked about how we would have another $2 billion earmarked for the system of the police force. So can the system be shared among disciplinary forces so that we can make good use of the $2 billion system? Thank you. On the Secretary. Well, this system is specifically for the operations of Customs and Excise and Department. So we need to make sure the operations of the department will be accommodated. Encryption software will play a key part in the system. We need to make sure our communications will not be intercepted, and even if it is intercepted, they can't make the conversation clear to them, and that there is some sort of destroy function if necessary. As for whether our system will be compatible with the system of the police, the system that we have here is going to be compatible with telco service providers' networks, and the police system would make use of their own radio base stations. And since they're using radio base stations, that will be compatible. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chen-kung, we have rampant drug activity in certain areas at the moment, and I think it is necessary to have communication among officers and between officers and the headquarters if necessary. You're saying the system will provide better coverage when the Customs and Excise Department is undertaking operations. Would that cover operations even at sea? That's my first question. Echoing on the point made by Professor Chow Man Kong, I note the police's system will be using broadband and yours will be radio. Would that accommodate 5G, 6G, or real-time communication? Because that may factor into the safety of operations. Would you consider working with the police on the operations, because the police also deal with drug cases? On transmission, do you own the spectrum for communication, or are you sharing them with the other disciplinary forces? Thank you, Undersecretary. As I said earlier, this new system makes use of the established radio network that is a designated spectrum for the Customs and Excise Department, and this system will also make use of telco service providers' network to provide us with better coverage. We also have some equipment that if officers have to go out to the sea or some remote areas, there will be some equipment that will give them essentially mobile base stations to increase coverage in the area. The member talked about 5G, and we should be able to accommodate 5G. As for 5.5G and 6G, it really depends in future, but this system is designated for the usage of the Customs and Excise Department, so we do not need as much accommodation as that. Perhaps we need to consider the cost. The telco service providers network is not a designated spectrum, so we need a really good encryption system. That's the reason. Mr. Benson, look. For the CDIB having to replace the radio communication system, I already spoke at the panel on security of my support, but I do have some questions for clarification. For the radio communication system, it has to be replaced because the models are already not manufactured and the parts are no longer replaced. I think another challenge lies with geopolitical tensions. Say the police also talked about having trouble getting spare parts. So for this radio communication system, will we face similar challenges? How are we going to tackle the challenges? I also note paragraph 12 of the paper says that the net annual recurrent expenditure, that is essentially the maintenance cost, is $3.38 million. Would that include maintenance and repair costs for the telco service providers network, or is it just the case that the CNED will deal with maintenance and repair on its own? Thank you.
Undersecretary, thank you. CNED is one of our law enforcement agencies. They are responsible for guarding our gate, so their operational ability has everything to do with whether we can safeguard the national security. So we have to make sure that our supply chain is stable enough. With the support of the FC, we will consider a limited procurement so that we will not be disclosing any details that may undermine our operation, and so that we can rule out service providers that we're not sure of. Now, on maintenance and repair, in the $3.38 million, well, $1.2 million is about the basic maintenance of our own system, and that's done by our colleagues. There is $1.7 million of repair and maintenance on the new system, and that's also done by our own colleagues. Regarding the remaining $600,000, that's our service fees for our provider. Thank you. Ms. Yong Ha-yan, thank you. I support the proposal because we have space drugs oils that is becoming very popular. We have to make sure that we can track the trafficking of dangerous drugs at the boundary. It's necessary for us to procure the new system. In 2009, we actually approved a funding of $15 million. Now the CNED is only asking for $19 million for the new system. The administration explained that the existing system will continue to be used. We still have radio terminals that will continue to be used, am I right? So are we going to use the new and the old ones in tandem, or are we going to phase out all the old radio terminals and switch to the new one instead? Are we all going to change all the old ones with the new ones? I know that we are going to continue to use the existing system for another 5 years, but I'm worried about it. Because what happens after 5 years? In Q2 2027, you said that you will start using the new system. But in 2027, the service life of the system has only 3 years left. How will you cope with the interfacing problem? So are you going to seek funding from the FC to update or replace the existing radio communication system? Undersecretary. Thank you. Ms. Young is correct. In 2009, we sought funding from the FC for $52 million for radio communication services and the integrated radio system. Much of it was spent on building the system. The difference between the new system and the old one is the dual mode transmission. So how can we switch between the existing system and the new system? That's the most expensive part because we have to use the software for the switch. The system at the mountain right now is operating very smoothly. It's very stable, so we're confident that it can last another 5 years. We have been maintaining it very diligently. We do have a service life for the system, and we do have stable supply of parts for the maintenance of the system. We don't think that the system necessarily will need to be replaced in 5 years' time. The radio terminals are all right, but the radio terminals are required to be phased out, but the system is all right. We will only switch to the new system when everything is ready. Most of the LEA adopt such an approach when they establish a new system. After the radio terminals have finished the service life, we will use it for training our new recruits. We will spend when necessary. When we see problems with the system, we will talk to the CNED to see if it needs to be replaced. Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I support the replacement of the radio communication system of the CDIB. Since 2014, the number of dangerous drugs seized has been increasing very substantially. So we do need to enhance the efficiency of the enforcement work of the CDIB. I have a few questions. First, emergency or contingency. A 10% has been reserved for it. So I wonder how the CNED is going to use it. I wonder how many percent of the contingency has the CNED spent on their previous computer system project. Second, we need to replace the radio communication system because the existing one can no longer be supported. However, I think that we need to seek for higher encryption standards and a more advanced technology instead of replacing the existing one when it completes the service life. I think that we all want the CNED to combat dangerous drug trafficking more effectively. So how can we make use of new technology to enhance their efficiency? Thank you. 2 questions. Undersecretary. We have 10% of contingency fee. We can only use the funding with the approval of the FC. If we don't reserve a 10% for contingency, then we will have to seek another approval from the FC if any parts of the project overrun, and that may affect our schedule. I don't have data or information on how we spent the contingency in the past. But if the contingency isn't spent, we're going to return it to the Treasury. As to the type of technology to be used, well, technology advances in leaps and bounds. The AI we talked about last year is very much different from that this year. But the system should be reliable, it should be secure. That's what we're looking for. Now we tend to procure a system that is stable and secure because the risk faced by our CDIB colleagues is very high, so we want a reliable system. Ms. Lillian Kwok, thank you. I appreciate the CNED for being so conservative about their spending. I agree with what Mr. Leung said. I think that I don't think that members are concerned about the amount that you're spending. We care about the enforcement efficiency. Under the existing geopolitical landscape, Hong Kong is sort of a hub where people import and export dangerous drugs. So I think that the system that we use have to be updated. Now regarding this $19 million, you will spend it on replacing the radio terminals. So how many of them are you going to replace? You said that some of them may cost $20,000, so I wonder how many terminals will be replaced. Second, so which country does the service provider come from? Thank you. Undersecretary, thank you. As to how many radio terminals we're going to replace, well, I may not be able to disclose it because that may disclose our capability. We are going to replace about 200 to 300 of them. Second, as we said, we are very much concerned about the reliability and safety of our system. The supplier that we use is one from the mainland. We have conducted some market survey, and we think that only the supplier from the mainland can meet our requirements. Any follow-up question? As technology develops very quickly, as this system has everything to do with our national security and the safety of our people, I hope that the CED will spend when it's necessary instead of trying to save money. Dr. Johnny Ng, thank you. After declared interest, I am a director of a telecommunications company. I support the proposal I do think that we need to upgrade the system because criminals are equipped with advanced technology these days. That's why we need a good system, so I support the project. As mentioned by the other colleagues, the funding amount is not substantial. I have a few questions though. First, regarding procurement. You just talked about the police system. They adopted a direct procurement approach. The Undersecretary said that they will use a restricted tender approach. Can we use the direct tender approach this time as well? Because according to the police's experience, by using the direct procurement approach, they saved a lot of money. Second, now in terms of software, it is used to support the dual mode transmission model of the hardware. It's not that expensive, $7 million. It will cover servers, communication interfaces, and network equipment. Are we going to procure software from any third party? Because it may entail a maintenance cost in the future. Third, on hardware. You said that you're going to replace 200 to 300 terminals. That's not a lot. If you purchase in bulk, then the unit price may be lower. Thank you.
Three questions, Undersecretary. Thank you. Chair, thank you, Dr. Johnny. With tendering, we keep an open mind as long as it's not open tendering. We are considering restricted tendering because we believe there may be more than one potential supplier. With competition, we may have a more competitive price. As for development, 400,000 will be network equipment, and we have another 100,000 for servers. We will have $6.8 million for communication interfaces. Some will be developed on our own, some will engage consultants to do that. It depends on whether it is part of the core system. The CDIB has a different mode of operation compared to other units of the Customs and Excise Department, say the units working at boundary control points. So those in boundary control points will be wearing uniforms, so their equipment will be definitely different from those in plain clothes. As for whether we can try to get a bulk price, we may not be able to increase the number by much. So we may not be able to purchase much more. But we'll try to get a competitive price as much as possible. Thank you. Mr. Tony Zhe. First of all, I would like to express support for the CNED's work in combating drugs, especially intercepting drugs at source. I do support the proposal. The Undersecretary said for hardware, the estimates are quite prudent, and I believe the Security Bureau will be prudent in spending money in future. I would like to seek clarification on recurrent expenditure. That is for the 3.5 million expenditure. Right now it only costs 120,000 in recurrent expenditure. Why is there such a significant difference? Alright. Question on recurrent expenditure, Undersecretary, please. The system the old system will only use radio. The new system will make use of dual mode transmission. And every year, the old system would cost $1.35 million in maintenance. For the radio part, it is just $120,000 for radio terminals. It costs $120,000 to $150,000 to maintain and repair. We need to have $120,000 after we make use of a new system still for the basic radio part of the system. We also have a cost for buying telco service providers services, and then we need to spend $1.7 million on maintaining and repairing the new system. So right now, basically, the old system would cost $1.35 million to repair. The new system would cost, as said in the paper, $3.5 million. So it is just a difference of about $2 million. Well, I want to ask, with the difference in the cost, does it lie only with the quantity, or is it the complexity? Well, the radio terminals will not increase by much numbers. We do have more basic computer systems, so that the systems can accommodate dual mode transmission. Essentially, more softwares will be needed, and we will also need some servers to store our data. So these are the additional parts. Any follow-up questions? None. Thank you, Mr. Tse. Dr. So Chen-Wing. Thank you, Chair. The Customs and Excise Department has been doing well in combating drugs, and I believe they do need advanced equipment and technology to help with their work. I therefore support this proposal of replacing the system. I have two related questions. First, I note that the police said earlier, due to geopolitical tensions and national security considerations, they will update their radio equipment and they will practice direct procurement. I think the Customs and Excise Department may have similar considerations. So would you consider making use of the direct procurement approach? This Undersecretary mentioned you would go with mainland suppliers. I think since we have national security considerations, it is best that we procure such equipment from mainland suppliers so that we won't face any restrictions from overseas. And mainland has quite advanced technology, and I think the technology would not be any worse than technology of other places. It is also said that the market for specialized radio terminals is limited, resulting in smaller order volume. I know that the police are also changing their radio communication equipment, as I said earlier. I want to ask, since the police are already directly procuring such equipment, why not have the Security Bureau lead the procurement efforts so that we can achieve cost effectiveness and perhaps bulk pricing with the suppliers, and we can still get equipment that the disciplinary forces need? Thank you. Undersecretary, 2 questions. Thank you, Chair. As said, the Customs and Excise Department department's work would have national security considerations. When we provide equipment to the department, we need to consider geopolitical tensions and security in supply chain. Apart from, we won't consider open tendering, but we will consider restricted tendering or even single tendering. We need to make sure security requirements are met, so we are inclined to make use of restricted tendering. As for whether we can have a shared system between police and the Customs and Excise Department, it is not exactly feasible because this system has to be, the police system has to be built from the ground up. Some components may be shared, but then for, say, the police or other units of the Customs and Excise Department, they may need cameras installed for enforcement work. But for the CDIB, they do not need this. The CDIB also needs to have different specifications such as size and battery capacity that is different from what are needed by uniformed police officers. We are trying to find a suitable mode of operation of radio terminals for CDIB. There may be similar models in other disciplinary forces, but we need to consider the security needs. The work definitely requires security. And for the systems, we need to set up some firewalls, even between disciplinary forces or even within the Customs and Excise Department. So say for the CDIB and say the units at the boundary control points, between these systems, there should be firewalls so that when something happens to a particular unit, it won't spread to other units. This is also a security consideration. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Falk. Thank you. Chair, I very much support the proposal that will ensure the safety of officers. I think this is money well spent if this proposal is passed. I want to echo on some points made by the Mr. Attorney Tse. If we have 9.3 million divided by 20 to 30,000, but it should be more than 300. Let's say it's 300. In 2027-2028, we would have some cost for communication networks. So I think this is a lump sum, right? Or is it the case that we would have a per unit expenditure? If we need more machines in future, will that increase the cost we have here? And with security, we are of course especially concerned about hardware security. Well, with network service providers, I believe their infrastructure may have components supplied by the country. So will you have separate tendering for hardware and network service providers, or would you have tendering for both at the same time? And would you have security considerations in tendering? Thank you. Undersecretary. Well, with the recurrent expenditure, there are two parts. One part is the hardware that is for the maintenance and repair and replacement of the terminals and components. For the software, we have maintenance of the servers, communication interfaces, etc. As for the network cost, it is mainly for us to purchase data from the telco service providers. If we need to increase the number of radio terminals in future, if we need to increase our need of services for telco service providers network, it may increase the cost. But will we sign a single agreement with a single network service provider? It may not be the case. We will actually have reference to the coverage of our established network to make sure we are getting coverage in the blind spots specifically. So we may sign agreements with different network service providers. We want to maintain some sort of flexibility for the Customs and Excise Department to purchase such services from more than a single network service provider. So maybe the system can accommodate more than one telco service provider, right? Well, maybe I can put it this way. It's just like inserting a SIM card on a phone. If we want to communicate in one network and switch it to the other, we can just change the SIM cards. That's how it works. Sure. Thank you. Mr. Chan Su-hong.
Thank you. Regarding replacing the existing radio communication systems of the CDIB of the CNED, well, the Undersecretary has explained in detail about the needs for it because the current system has been in operation for more than 10 years. That's why they need to replace it. They said that they're going to continue to use the established radio network, but they are going to introduce a dual mode transmission in the terminals so that it can receive 5G public radio network. And because of this dual mode transmission, you have to build custom-made radio terminals. So, do other jurisdictions also use this dual mode transmission? It seems that only CDIB is using this transmission. For the police, they replaced the entire system. They replaced Ketra with 5G. I believe that the police has as high requirements for their radio communication system as the CNED. And they are not using the dual mode transmission. They rely on 5G alone. The Undersecretary said that there is certain uniqueness to the operation to be conducted by CDIB. If this dual mode transmission is so effective, why doesn't the police need it in their operation? Well, we need to replace the system because it exceeded its normal service life. But if we are purchasing terminals that can only receive 5G network, then the cost may be lower. Now, given the principle of economy of scale, the cost may be higher because you're custom making your radio terminals. In 5 years' time, you may come back to replace all terminals with 5G ones instead of one with dual mode transmission because radio network is going to be phased out. I know that you have to be conservative with your spending because of our fiscal position. But on the 3rd of May, the police asked for funding for their new system, and it can be commissioned in in a very short time. If the system can be shared use between the CNED and the police, then we can save money. I'd like to know why you like to stick to radio network. One more question. In 2025, 26, 26, 27, hardware and software maintenance is 1.2 million. And on 2027, 28 onwards is $2.9 million. Why is that? Is it because you're going to purchase in larger quantity starting from 2027, 28? That's why the recurrent expenditure is higher since then. However, I believe that the agreement with the service provider would cover maintenance and repair for the first 1 to 2 years upon purchase of the equipment. Thank you. 2 questions. Thank you. The radio network that we use is a neutral mode. It's used by many law enforcement agencies around the world because it's very stable, secure, reliable, and encrypted. It's not an outdated system. As to why we don't upgrade the entire system to 5G, well, that has to do with the resources that we have to dedicate. If we keep to the current radio network, we can keep our radio base stations at the mountains and the systems in our control rooms, in the headquarters, along with other infrastructures. The radio network platform that we are using is still very stable. So given our fiscal constraints, we don't think that it's very cost effective for us to replace it completely. Now on the question about 5G, 6G, telecommunications technology develops very quickly. Some people are already using 5.5G. So how can we incorporate 5G into our operation so that with little input we can achieve better results and outcome? Financial commitment is one of our major considerations. As to the difference between CDIB and the police, well, the police has some 30,000 officers. We have watch and watch duty. They have people patrolling on the streets every day. That's why their system has to be very compatible with regular platforms on the community. They have high requirements on visual and audio. We have an application on reporting illegal parking with the police. However, the requirements of CNED is very different. The CDIB is mostly responsible for anti-drug operation. The telecommunications requirement is very different. We don't need everyone to be able to see the visuals immediately. We don't think that it's necessary for us to put in as much resources into the system of the CDIB compared to the one of the police. If our current radio network is outdated, we may try to expand our use of 5G. However, by then, the equipment for 5G may be cheaper. And with the same money, we may be able to procure 6G terminals. At this stage, I think that our proposal has the best value for money. It may not be the best, but the best proposal would require a lot of money. Mr. Tan Yuhan. Sorry, second question. On the recurrent expenditure, you may have to be more succinct. Well, the $1.2 million in the first 2 years are about the maintenance of the radio base stations on the mountain and the existing system. As in the third year, the new system will be in operation, so in the $1.7,600,000 will be about the network to be procured by the provider. $600,000 for network, $1.7 million for the maintenance of the system. Mr. Tan Yuhan. Thank you, Chairman. I support the replacement of the radio communication systems of the CDIB, of the CNED. I have 2 points of concern. One, on the service life of the system. Well, it has everything to do with our technology. Previously, we were able to use the same device for a long time. However, these days we switch to new products very often. In the past, we can use the same product for 10 years. In the future, we may not be able to do the same because technology will advance even more quickly. We have to have regards to the actual operation of the CNED and the new generations of system that is going to come out before we decide on how long we're going to use the system. Second, in Q2 2027, the system will be commissioned. That's 2 years away from today. However, our existing system has exceeded its normal service life. The radio terminal model are already out of production and they are being phased out of the market. The spare parts also face a shortage in supply, making the maintenance and repair work very difficult. So what will happen in the next 2 years before the new system is commissioned? Will the work of the CNED be affected? What measures do we have to make sure that nothing out of our control will happen? Undersecretary, before you answer the questions, if I may remind members, there are still 3 members who would like to put questions. If there are other members who would like to ask questions, please come to the room to press the button. We're going to put this item to a vote very soon. Undersecretary. Thank you. Regarding the service life of the new system, we expect it to last 10 years. If there is any change in the operational needs of the CNED, we will review the system to see if it needs any replacement. Second, in Q2 2027, we're going to commission the new system. Before that, we do have enough spare parts to repair and maintain the system. Thank you. No follow-up questions? And I see that the questions are repeating. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you. And last year, the number of cases related to dangerous drug detected has been increasing. So I think that is necessary for the CNED to replace its system. I have two questions. First, the paper says that we have to spend $9 million on procuring this hardware and the terminals, and for each terminal it's going to cost $25,000 to $30,000. Because the number of orders for such terminal is not high and we have limited number of suppliers, that's why the unit cost for these terminals is higher. I wonder if the other law enforcement agencies have the same demand for such kind of terminals. If we purchase these equipments together, perhaps we can achieve a lower unit price. Second, I believe that security of the system would be very important. The police will cancel the tender. Instead, they are going to directly procure their communication system from a supplier directly. However, the CNED is going to adopt a restricted tender approach. How can we make sure that the supplier will be from a secure place? Thank you. The third question has been put many times. Thank you.
Undersecretary. Well, as for whether we can buy in bulk, in theory, we can. But other disciplinary forces have different radio equipment requirements. The CDIB is a special unit. Their work will be quite different from that of uniformed police officers. Say, uniformed police officers would need to have body cameras installed on their radio terminals. If we include body cameras in the radio terminals of the CDIB, not only are they not necessary, it is not exactly suitable for their operations either. We'll try to select something suitable for the CDIB in particular. And we also want to kind of diversify the models used, because if a model has issues, we don't want it to happen to every single unit. We have excluded the approach of open tendering. We are considering restricted tendering to ask certain suppliers to submit bids. We are not adopting the single tendering approach because we believe there is more than one potential supplier. We want to get more competitive prices through this. Thank you. Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Chair. My first question is, the Undersecretary said the radio terminals will mainly be used for voice communication. They will not have, say, visual communication. So I want to ask, for this system, will that be also used in command vehicles or the CNED's command and control system? If that is the case, $19 million is really cheap. I also want to ask, this new system, how many operations can it support simultaneously? I mean, sometimes operations can be undertaken at the same time. There may be two operations happening at the same time. Can the new system accommodate more than one operation at the same time? Second, some members asked about encryption and security of the system. Some are some have asked about whether one can decode the message, but I want to ask if it is possible to break down the message. And sometimes drug dealers only need to block your communication for them to flee from your operation. So I want to ask about the mechanism of the Customs and Excise Department. You don't need to give me the details. I just want to ask if the system is resistant against attack from hackers who are looking to only stop communication. My third question is, in your communication, how secure it is definitely important, and we need to have some really good companies providing good encryption. And I don't think the system will be replaced anytime soon, and I don't think there are that many companies that can offer such advanced technology. Will the supplier deliberately set higher prices because they do not have much competition? Honestly, if I were a company in the field, that is probably what I would do. So these are my 3 questions. Alright, I'm not sure if the Undersecretary can answer the second question, but Undersecretary, please. Thank you. When we talk about dual mode transmission, it is about the system that will be adopting this model. So the officers can talk to officers, and officers can talk to the command center, and the command center can talk to all officers. Now, as for how many operations can be supported, let me put it this way. It is about providing enough capacity for different teams. So simply put, it can support more than one, definitely. As for whether communication can be blocked, and it may not be the case that it has to be malicious. I would just say when the typhoon signal number 8 is hoisted, would it affect the communication? I would say this because we are adopting the dual mode transmission approach. We can go by different networks, and that will always make available a channel for communication. As for procurement, if they are talking about our specialized radio terminals, it would cost $25,000 to $30,000, and there is a limited market for specialized radio terminals. We are actually looking at the top end of the spectrum, and we are just looking for competitive prices from suppliers. We have only Mr. Dennis Leung who has yet to speak. Are there any other members who wish to speak? None? Alright, after Mr. Dennis Leung has spoken, we'll put the item to vote. Mr. Dennis Leung, thank you, Chair. We did talk about this proposal at the panel on security, and I note in this paper 5B, that the CDIB's network equipment will be replaced, and the system will utilize the established radio network built by the CNED. That's why we have been able to save costs in infrastructure. But I also note at this week's panel on economic development meeting, we talked about low altitude economy development, and we also talked about some issues with communication spectrum with the mainland. we are using 2.4G and 5.8G spectrum in Hong Kong and the mainland. They are making use of 1.4 gigahertz spectrum for public security. And when we are developing low altitude economy, the Fire Services Department is also using the 1.4 gigahertz spectrum. And I understand there may be some collaboration with the mainland, and 1.4 gigahertz spectrum will be reserved in the mainland by the mainland for the Fire Services Department. So I want to see if there are similar arrangements for the police's and the Customs and Excise Department systems, so that we do not need additional funding and resources to accommodate future changes. Do you have any coordination with the Fire Services Department and the Civil Aviation Department on this? Thank you. The Customs and Excise Department actually has a designated spectrum, and that has been provided by the Secretary or the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau, and the Security Bureau will also consider this. If necessary, we can see if any other spectrums are needed. Thank you. I believe you can't disclose the details anyway. Alright, if there are no further questions, I now put FCR 2025-26 to 19 to vote. Members in favor of the item, please raise your hands. Members against the item, please raise your hands. None. I believe the members who voted on the item are all in favor of the item. That declare the item approved. The next meeting of Finance Committee will be held on 13th of June. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.